If 2020 has taught retailers anything, it's the value in having an adaptable, successful omnichannel strategy. That's why Total Retail released its fourth annual Top 100 Omnichannel Retailers report. This report reveals the ranking of 100 leading retailers based on their omnichannel capabilities across 7 key criteria. Download this free resource to measure your company's omnichannel strategy against its competition. Go to mytotalretail.com/resources to download today.
Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan of Total Retail, and today I am joined by Lizzy Ellingson, who is the Chief Digital Experience Officer at David's Bridal. We're going to be talking to Lizzy today a little bit about David's Bridal's use of 3D and augmented reality technology for its customers' online shopping experiences. So thanks for joining me today, Lizzy.
Thank you for having me.
So as I noted, David Bridal is begun using 3D and augmented reality. It's partnered with a company by the name of Vertebrae for that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this new partnership and the new program?
Yeah, of course. So, back in before COVID-19 really started to take form, I would say in March, and where we were shutting down our stores, we started to really look at how do we digitize the in-store experience? How do we bring a dress to the user? And obviously, this went into warp speed when COVID-19 shut all of our stores back in April, May. And so we really looked for a true partner to help us elevate this experience, really looking at the fine details of a dress. How do we bring that to life in a really beautiful fashion? So something that has a really high level of detail and we can project in their home. And so vetted a couple different partners, Vertebrae, winning the ticket there. And how it works right now is as a user, you can go to our website, davidsbridal.com. And if you look at the bridesmaid navigation, there is a link to view 3D and AR dresses. And we have pulled over 50 dresses, kind of a makeup of bridal meets bridesmaids dresses. And you can project these in your home. And when we were building this experience, we really looked at, what would be the best for the user experience, and that we picked dresses that are found in store. So 90% of the catalog that you'll see in that product landing page are found in store. And so when you go to that page, you select one of the products we call them PLPs, the product listing page, that are specifically flagged for 3D or AR. When you go to that page, if you're on your mobile device, which is 72% of our users, there are 2 buttons that come up above the image, one that says 3D and one that says AR. If you select the AR button, it will then open up the augmented reality function on your phone, either iPhone or Android phone, of which you can project it directly in your room. And you can walk around the dress, you can zoom in, you can see those fine details. You can actually take a photo of somebody next to it. So let's say you're trying to look for dresses and you have your spouse or your fiance next to you. You can actually project it without them seeing anything. So you can start to make decisions off of that, or even have your bridesmaids stand next to you, your mom or your dad, sky's the limit in terms of photos, and you can start to see how these start to take form. And then the 3D experience is actually projected in our website. So it's a similar form as you see in the AR when you can walk around it, but in 3D. And this really allows us to show that experience to all device types, because one thing and one limitation is that AR experience is only available on iPhones with 12 plus operating system and with Android 8 plus.
So one of the things I found interesting in what you just mentioned is that these tools are browser-based, and typically, the AR tools and the 3D tools that we've seen out in the market have been application-based. Do you want to tell us a little bit about why that's important for your customers, and a little bit about the difference in the experience being browser-based versus an app?
Yeah, of course. So we really looked at this. How do we make this as easy as possible for the user? How do we make this frictionless in the experience? And so they're already on our website. They're already browsing dresses prior to making an appointment, or they're browsing dresses and buying them online. So how do we drive confidence in that choice, or drive confidence in making an appointment and making, David's Bridal their choice? And found that rather than having another app to download, it's much easier to layer this into the shopping experience. So similar to a favorites functionality, a simple click of a button, and you can see that. This is definitely starting to become more popular in the AR 3D world. You're seeing it more and more within retailers of layering it on top of the website rather than having a separate application. And it's something that, we were very strongly believing in early on, that we want to remove just another thing that somebody had to download and
Yep.
really elevate that shopping experience on the web.
So for the customer that lands on they like a particular dress, they go to the product detail or the product listing page, excuse me. Is there a button that they see that there's AR enabled functionality exists? How do they kind of know which dresses are they're able to use this tool for?
Yeah, so on our website, if you go to our brides navigational drop down, both either on mobile or on desktop. So I'll talk about the mobile flow and then I'll also explain the desktop flow. So if you go to brides, and then there's a category called 3D and AR, wedding dresses in 3D and AR, of which will pull up a PLP, our product listing page, that'll highlight all of the products that are viewable in 3D or AR. Now, if you're not on that page and you're just viewing all bridal dresses, we also have a little graphic on the image while you're browsing that says view in 3D. So if you select one of those and you open it up, there are two buttons that go over the image that says view in 3D and view in AR. If you select 3D on your phone, it will open up a 3D experience with a white background where you can move that dress all around. So you can see all 360 views of it. You can really zoom in. And an AR functionality, you select that and then you project it in your room. And the iPhone will give you prompts, and the Android phone will give you prompts of how to display it. You usually have to move your phone around in a circular fashion so that it can pick up the ground and then display the dress. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can just push it farther away, closer to you or farther away. And then you can also walk around it so you can see it fully in that space. Now on the desktop experience, similar to mobile, we have those flags and we also have those buttons. You can view in 3D on desktop. On AR, it will actually pull up a pop-up with a QR code prompting you to use your phone. And it tells you, which phones or operating systems actually accept AR functionality. And so you can scan it with your phone's camera and then it will pull up that 3D AR experience on your phone.
So maybe for some context, were your customers typically, you mentioned all these are 90% of the dresses in store that were part of this 3D catalog. Were most of your customers using your website and now tools such as this 3D functionality and the AR functionality as kind of a research tool, and then they were coming in store to actually see the dress? And is this kind of tool as a mechanism to replace that as more and more consumers are opting not to go into physical retail at this time?
Yeah, so I think it's bridging the gap of quite a few things. And so let me kind of break those down. So first and foremost, it's the store experience. So when we closed our doors in April, May, it was the first time in our 70-year history that all 300 of our stores were shut down. And I know we're not the only retail place out there that had that happen. And so really we tried to get as creative as possible in the digital experience to bring that back to the consumer. So how do we bring what's so magical about being in the store? Your associate who's such an expert helping you really pick what's best for you. And really that personalized touch of being able to hold actual products, see it in person. And so this was one of the areas of which we really dove into, is how do we bring that dress to life rather than just in a 2D format, which is in images, which people do every single day browsing for inspiration, but really give them that confidence to either A, purchase online, or B, book an appointment and really take that step, knowing that this is a dress that's within inventory and they can see it right away.
Are you able to track back who is booking an appointment after using the 3D and AR tools? Is there a mechanism internally to kind of trace that?
Yeah, so we've actually have a lot of data behind it, and we're seeing a great growth in those products that actually have 3D and AR enabled. We're seeing a strong growth in that.
So for some, maybe we'll talk a little bit about timeline here. When did this tool become available to your customers, and a little bit about maybe their feedback, how they're using it, what they like, even ways maybe they've told you, hey, this would be a great, additional feature that you could have. What kind of have you heard from your customers?
So we've heard nothing but wonderful reviews. So we released this at the end of September. And so it's been in market for a little over a month. People love it. They really see it as kind of a game changer in the experience from, the typical 2D format, like I was talking about earlier, browsability, and really being able to see it in your home, and really just this separate experience and what we're typically used to for shopping. And really David's Bridal being the forefront of that change, which is something they're not quite used to, right? We're really making a strong play in digital, and really how do we explode it? How does David's Bridal become one of the best digital commerce platforms out there? And these are the type of tools that really drive that home and really providing the best experience for the user. And so we've gotten a ton of feedback that they find this very helpful. It's a really fun experience too. That's part of the wedding dress experience is, it's not just a transaction at the end of the day. This is the most important event in many people's lives. And so how do we drive that, magical moment for them? And this is part of that, right? How do you see a dress in 3D? Wow, this is really cool. I can see it in my room. I can actually walk around it, giving you that confidence, booking an appointment, and then going in store and talking with the stylist and really finding out what is best for you. And it's really all about the journey, because the journey just doesn't, stop and end online. It's full through until their actually wedding date and beyond.
So I know it's still rather early in the early days here with this project, but do you find that you might be attracting a new type of customer because of this functionality that you now offer? Or is this kind of more, are you viewing this more as just an added benefit to the shopping experience? You're improving upon the shopping experience for the customer that you already had, or maybe it's both. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm hopeful that it's both, to be honest. But I think it's the latter, where I think we're improving upon the shopping experience to gain more confidence for our current user base. But I do think, as we continue to drive into digital, we're making purchasing easier for a user. We're listening to their feedback. We're applying these changes of how not only to make the site as beautiful as possible, as easy as possible, making purchasing online in one click, those kind of things that we're looking at. And this is the start of that. So really, how do we make that experience the best for the user? And then how does that trickle out in terms of, brand confidence? So, if somebody has a really good experience, not only in store, but online, they're going to recommend you. And all of these updates and different digital tools that we're building and designing, that helps that really and drive home, the difference between David's Bridal and other brands out there.
Yeah, kind of getting that word of mouth going as well.
Correct.
So I mentioned at the start that you've partnered with a company by the name of Vertebrae for the AR and 3D tool. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what kind of made that the right partner to work with? Tell us a little bit about how you ended up with Vertebrae.
Yeah. So we, like I said earlier, we were evaluating 3D and AR prior to COVID. It just happened to coincide that, that was happening, and we knew we needed to go on it. We needed to go on it quickly. And so we found the partner Vertebrae after vetting quite a few out there. And really something that we looked at with them is, not just a transaction of, they're getting another partner on their books, but really trying to tackle this space when it comes to wedding dresses. It's a complicated space because I'm not sure if you know much about the photogrammetry, but taking photos of a product, a still product, it's thousands of photos that you're stitching together. And it's a very timely endeavor. It takes about 20 hours to take photographs of one product. And in this space with actual garments like a wedding dress, there's very intricate details that you need to capture. And so you need really high powerful cameras, but you also need to play around with those cameras. There's a lot of there's a lot of different layering that come with wedding dresses that are just much different than you would see in products like a couch or a lamp that you're seeing on other, retail companies that are really driving into that 3D space. We're really one of the first garments to really drive through 3D and AR and do it in a really beautiful format, but also a very detail-oriented format. And so you can really zoom in and see that detail. And that was really important to us. We knew we weren't going to be layering this on a human, so you can't actually place it on your body. The technology just isn't there. And so how do we really take what is there in the technology? And that is, high powerful cameras, really extracting that detail and then showcasing that to our user. And Vertebrae won us over. They really wanted to dive in that space with us. And how do we test different items? We tested so many dresses together. And it was a partnership of how do we get the best high quality product for our users.
And to your point earlier, I think, this isn't like a consumer coming onto your site or another retailer site and buying a sweater or a shirt or a pair of shoes that, doesn't hold the sentimental value that a wedding gown might have. So they really want to see the detail. They want to be sure of their purchase before they're making it. So I guess offering that kind of, super detailed look at the product is ways even more important in your space.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And that was really the function of the partnership, is how do we really extract as much detail as possible and what is the best partner for that? And that was Vertebrae.
which leads me into my next question, Lizzie, in terms of, you mentioned this project's been live for a little while now. Do you want to tell us a little bit about kind of the business benefits that David Bridal has realized, or maybe, hope to realize as a result of your partnership with Vertebrae and the use of 3D and AR technology?
Yeah, so things that we're evaluating is confidence, and confidence in a couple different areas. So one, confidence to purchase an item. Does having 3D and AR give people the confidence? And we're seeing that it does. It is causing a lift in those items that do have 3D and AR, right? It's adding another layer for people to view this in a different format. And then secondly, it's bridging that in-store gap. So does this give the confidence for them to take the step to actually book an appointment? And again, we're seeing a lift in appointments with products that have 3D and AR. And so it really goes back to, like I've said multiple times, is the confidence in the user. Do they have the confidence to purchase or potentially go in store? And how do we elevate that? How do we bridge that gap between in-store and online? And I really believe this is the starting place.
So that lift that you mentioned, which leads into my final question in terms of, what's next potentially. You mentioned the products that do have the functionality available to the consumer. You're seeing that, lift versus a product that doesn't have it. So is in the works, I guess, getting more products in the 3D catalog and kind of increasing the assortment there. That would seem to be a natural next step if the tool is producing the lift that you're hoping for.
Yeah, exactly. So we're looking at expanding the product offering right now. How do we drive it to different departments? So you're looking at dresses, Flower Girl, a bunch of others. We really just tested in the bridal and lightly in the bridesmaids. How do we add different color categories? So we have, some of the most color options for bridesmaid dresses. So how do we expand that too? So you can see the exact color that you're looking at buying. And then, down the line, it's really looking at accessories. So, one of the things that we looked at was how is try on, so actually physically try it on your body form, where is that in 3D and AR? And what we're finding is things like glasses, earrings, things that can go potentially on your face. Those are actually, the technology is getting there. And so that's another area we're looking at opportunity, is just accessories, and how do we drive, again, confidence that this could be the right product for you.
Great. Well, it was an interesting conversation with Lizzy Ellingson, the Chief Digital Experience Officer at David's Bridal, about the company's work with Vertebrae and its use of 3D and AR technology. So thank you for joining me today, Lizzy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcast for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.
Total Retail's 2020 Top 100 Omnichannel Retailers Report reveals the ranking of leading retailers based on their omnichannel capabilities. Gain competitive insights into successful omnichannel strategies by downloading the report today at mytotalretail.com/resources.